Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this video. An update that I want to give you is about postural strength for better running. There's so many things to say here, and actually, if you've watched any of my videos and you haven't been to the gym yet, you can see how nice the new wall looks. It doesn't look like snot green, so that's positive. With that said, one of the things I've been thinking of a lot recently with some of my clients, runners and non-runners, is how much the back muscles, spinal muscles, and the deep areas of the deep areas of the spine, both front, like your psoas, that helps you flex. So if we're talking more about a running stride, like how important some of those spinal stabilizers are, and how that does affect your posture. Like I'm going to be a little extravagant with this, but it's really easy to kind of be here towards the end of a race, and you're not only inhibiting your lung function and your lung openness, if you will, but just your ability to take a deep breath, as well as consistently. And then, of course, once your heart rate goes up during a race, obviously this becomes more of a bigger deal. So mainly that, like what we're wanting to talk about today is just simply how important is posture. And then I'm going to show you some exercises, simple things that you can do. Some of these things I have in your programs, but stuff that you may want to keep going with. And this comes down to you, your gut feeling. If you just know, or maybe you and I have talked about this and we just haven't followed up on it recently, even just something like a face pull exercise literally teaches your body to be in a solid upright position. Obviously, I'm being extravagant with it. You're not ever like, you don't want to be like this running, because then it's a little bit too stiff, but it does teach your back muscles to fire. It also helps out the front muscles, the inhibitors to some of your postural issues. So I'm going to label a few things. Basically, some of the main things you need to worry about when it comes to your posture is your low back, kind of near this SI joint, basically from the spine down to the low back. There's these little triangles called the QL muscles. Your breathing muscles, just typical, how is your rib cage stationed when you're sitting all the time and when you're running, especially when you're running hard. And then on top of that, some other areas like this front area of the pectoral minor is a muscle that typically inhibits people's postural capabilities because it basically pulls your shoulder forward. And so you have this more inhibited or crossed over position in your running form. Now, it's a very simple thing. This is why I often have a lot of postural exercises in my weightlifting routines. Sometimes people will see them and ask, why am I doing this right after a bench press or something like that? Or just simply, even after a squat or something, I'll have them work on anything from lateral glute muscles, which helps with your posture. And also I'll have stuff like face pulls or banded pull aparts. So these things are all extremely important to have, generally speaking, in your program, because one, it doesn't take a whole lot out of you. It's very simple to continue to have in your program as well. It's easy to then let the other exercise, the supersetted exercise, to actually rest. So if I did a squat, I had you do a big back squat at 85% of your max, you're clearly going to need about 90 seconds or more of rest after that. You can then, as long as you're not overexerting and you're not doing too much volume, like you don't have to do 25 reps of everything just because you're a distance runner, you can do 8 of these or 8 of these during that rest period, and thus you're getting you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So there's more on that another time. Supersetting is something I'll talk about in probably the next video or the video after that. But the main areas that I want you to think about that do affect your posture, it really is a head to toe thing. If your big toe is off, you are going to turn your foot out and you're going to be more prone to having your back arch, which then either causes pain or then just causes you to then crunch or try to overextend. So I'm not going to go overboard with this, but I want you to think about posture from a head to toe perspective and think about how important that could be for long-term running, health as well as just your normal health and how you feel, how you recover, the enjoyment of the sport. If your toes are always hurting and your spine's always like, it's not fun if you're always in pain. So working on these areas are important. Do they take precedent over squats and deadlifts and bench and your power exercises? Probably not. But I was just working with a client earlier. Been working with him for a couple years, and he's a big pickleball guy. He's really, really in tune with his body, and he's probably one of the most interesting, and he's probably one of my favorite clients because of how much we've communicated, how much he tells me about how he's feeling. It's super helpful. And we have figured out that his missing piece in so many exercises, pressing, carrying, playing pickleball, and being able to dive down, and with running, the same thing comes up. I used to have a problem right here, and it was basically because of a few things. My big toe wasn't firing, and it was broken at one point. And I would twist out as I was running, and so I had this just kind of weird like back leg flail thing, which went up my spine. I felt uncomfortable here, everything. I was losing power, I was losing focus, and it was not fun at all. Not fun at all. We basically figured out that this is something that was taking precedent, or that needed to take precedent over squats, all those other things, because every time we went down that alley, he didn't really recover well. Not always. He definitely improved. His squat numbers have gone up, and that's great. But his feeling and his happiness, even like, is just his recovery, how he feels when he's walking around, ultimately was not getting better, even though we were focusing on it. So then my whole point in saying this is we have done a boatload of postural movements to try to work on breathing. We've worked on side dipping, different opposite body stabilization exercises, single leg, stuff like this, to get those areas to fire. We have done a lot of rows so that he can feel the activation. We've split the legs and all that. And my point is like, we basically took things out. We took almost all leg exercises out. We've built this sucker up. Now he's able to hold a dumbbell overhead, and he's able to walk more comfortably. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. He has a long ways to go, and that's fine. But he's coming in every day and being like, dude, I feel better. People notice on the pickleball court, I'm moving better. And so even though if somebody were to come to me and say, hey, how do you get better at running? Here, what are the exercises that you need to do? I'm going to list off some of those big ones: squats, certain power jumps, plyos, things that make you more powerful, give you a stronger foundation, just like you need base mileage, just like you need threshold runs, all those things. But there was this missing link. So there's a couple things. One, I'm going to leave a challenge, and then I'm going to show you some exercises. What on your body, one to maybe two things, do you feel like is like a missing link? Do you feel like is just something that's leaking, if you will? Let me know. Reach out to me. Message me in the app. If you're just somebody that's just watched this video, feel free to just comment. Ask me a question. But there you go. Let's leave it at that. Sorry, I said way too many things. But essentially, just think we're going to work on back. We're going to work on the small muscles behind the scapula, a little bit of neck posture, and then a couple stretches, as well as a couple carries. So, be ready? Let me know if you have questions. All right, a couple things that I do literally almost every lifting day, and sometimes in between. I take a band. You can do other things, PVC pipe and stuff for the overhead piece of this. But what I like to do with the band, this is more to get a stretch in this pectoral minor that I mentioned, to open up your airways, open up that tight areas, and almost everybody's going to be tight here to some degree. But especially after an upper body workout or a long run, hard session stuff, you're probably going to be tight here. And I like to just hold and then eventually go into overheads like this. And I basically pull the band apart. After I get some opening and stuff, then I'll work on some different hand position pull aparts. And so I'm essentially keeping my head over spine, pulling apart, squeezing that mid back. All right, one of my favorites to add in here, there's many different things we can do, but I like to do a single arm overhead dumbbell carry. I have a 20-pounder right now. You can see this is like right, I'm not warmed up, but you can see it's like right at that point where if I went any heavier, I'm not going to be able to hold this for very long. You can hold it and just stand, or you can take a little bit of a walk and then switch arms. I like to start with like 12, 15 seconds each side, eventually work up to where you're doing double arm and then you're alternating back and forth. If you don't feel like even with a light weight that you can keep that arm up, your lat muscles and some of what we just mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video are too tight. It's not allowing you to pull through, so you need to both open up and also strengthen the lat muscles, stuff like lat pull downs and some other rows. All right, I'm going to do a little modified row here. So this one, you really don't need much to facilitate what we're trying to do. Typically, I'm going to have people do bent over rows where they have 2 dumbbells. Those are fine. Those are great postural exercises, but very basic and not really what I want to talk about today. What I want you to do is hold a dumbbell on its sides, get to a point, try to get your head up to where you feel your spine activate, you feel your mid-back. Try not to arch too much and try not to be here. You're nice and taut. Feel these muscles, these spinalis muscles activate. And then you're basically slowly rowing, but you're pushing into the dumbbell. So you're kind of squeezing and rowing. Because unless you're going really heavy, which I don't suggest you do, especially if you have some history of low back pain and stuff, I want you to start light, but when you facilitate this, you're going to get everything here in your arms, and you're going to be able to feel your back work a little bit more prominently than if you're just doing rows. Now, the rows that I'm showing here, you'll feel in the shoulder, you'll feel in the mid-back, so there's a difference between the two. Both are beneficial. However, what I'm trying to do is help people, especially like if you've ever gotten done with a big race or a long run and you're really tight here, sometimes that just is what it is. Sometimes that's just the day, you're tired, you're fatigued, you need more nutrients, you need recovery. But sometimes it's simply because you don't have the puzzle pieces to last for 90 minutes without pain. There you go. All right, this one is going to be a pull-off press. It's one of my favorite exercises in general. It's also a great one to do for postural position. So my feet are hip width to distance facing forward, clasped, fingers interlaced, go straight out. You should be just far enough out to where you're not wiggling, you're not turning, your feet aren't moving, but you're able to like keep your toes down, big toes are contacted, and you're gonna feel it ideally in this whole inside area as well as this inside glute, probably to this low back. Of course, your arms are working a little bit, but you should almost feel like your deep spinal muscles are working. That's how far I want you to be out in that. You can mix it up. If you're in one of my programs, we'll be doing more holds at some point. Those are really key, not only for long-term health, but also just working on being strong and being able to breathe through those postural muscles. All right, one you're probably not ever going to think of, or muscles, I should say, that aren't necessarily something you're thinking of with posture, are some of your glute muscles and how this relates then to the low back. So what I want you to do is a couple things. One, if your hamstrings are tight, I want you warming those up before every run or before every workout. It could even just be something as simply you're just like doing some boulder rolls. You're just opening up that area so that you're not tight here starting the run. Then what I want you to do is activate. There's many different things you can do. I'm going to hold on to something here. I like to do inside leg goes up, you drop this hip, and then you press through. This foot is still flat. Dropping, press through. Man, that is one of the most difficult but most activating glute medius which is the stabilizing muscle of the hip here, or at least the lateral like stabilizer. This is like one of the best activation exercises that I've found to this point. I love this exercise. I probably don't do it enough. I think it really gets into that SI joint area, the QL that I mentioned earlier in the bigger video if you're just watching a chunk here. And I think it's one of the best things you can do. Even before a run, you can activate. as well as just most importantly, I like to do this supersetting, especially if I'm supersetting with an upper body exercise, so I'm not overdoing the glutes. I can very easily do whatever, bench and overhead press, do that carry I just showed you a couple exercises ago, and then go right into this, and you can easily add some good stabilization to your glute muscles, which will help you long term with how your posture, especially mid-run, mid-race, unfolds. All right, one of my favorite things, we got another carry. Carries are great for postural work. I am a big believer in the cross-sectional, like opposite joints, let's say the left shoulder to the right hip, how that relates to your spinal rotation and your spinal strength. So I like doing single arm stuff, and I showed you the overhead dumbbell move earlier. But this one, essentially, I'm just gonna do one side here and have a very slow cadence. I'll show you from the front view as well. I'm going slow enough so that I can feel this opposite part of my back and my glutes working as I'm walking through the position or walking through the movement. I sometimes will even like to do this backwards just to kind of mess with the brain a little bit. You know, I don't know why I did that. But anyway, that is a phenomenal exercise. I think typically farmers carries double arm or like holding up top is another great exercise to work, which I'll show you another time. For even posture, but also just spinal stabilization, abdominal strength, and then just an awareness. You're holding weight and you're having to walk. You know, you weigh whatever you already weigh, and then you're adding weight to it. That's huge. So anyway, all is to say, the single arm one or the single arm versions of these, and even just exercises like overhead press, single arm rows, that may be for some people more beneficial than just doing all double. At the end of the day, when you're running, you're kind of going split leg. I don't want to overdo this thought, but there's moments where you are on just one leg and you need to be able to be strong going from one leg to the other and in a smooth pattern. There you have it. All right, friends, last exercise. Right now, my little tripod thing is balancing on a chalk cauldron. There's a good chance this falls while I'm explaining this to you. Take a nice ankle band. I use these a lot for, even though one of those glute exercises I showed you, I like doing a lot like lateral walks and monster walks to get the glutes firing, get the hip flexors working, all that stuff. But that's for another time. Essentially what you're gonna do is, this is too heavy of a band for me, by the way. This is just all we have here right now. Essentially you're gonna create, ideally, a Y position up against the wall. This one's a burner. My clients hate this one. And you're pushing and widening your arms as you go forward. Now, if I was doing slightly lighter band, I'd be able to go a little bit more full range of motion, which would be a little healthier, but right through this mid area, kind of a little bit below the scaps, man, it just lights those suckers up. It's a great exercise. Give it a shot. All right, thanks so much for watching. If you have not liked, comment, or subscribed, please do so. This is actually a featured video from my Resilient Runner Reset program. If you want to know more about what that is, if you want to get faster, stronger, and more injury resilient, 1, do these exercises to help your posture, and 2, reach out to me, sign up for my new program. Thank you and have a great day.